I'm building a .NET MAUI app to solve a real-world problem because I'm tired of dealing with it. I've spent years coding for investment banks, but today my dogs and I are tackling something much more important. I'm Chris. Welcome to Coding with My Dogs. It's a nice day. I'm out with the dogs, fresh air, exercise, everything's perfect until this happens. Now I'm carrying this bag for who knows how long, and as always, no bin in sight. I could just accept this, or do what any developer would do. Build an app to solve it. So today, I'm building an app to find the nearest poo bin. Let's get back. All right, I'm back at my desk. Let's get coding. Basically, we want to create a new project here. You can see I've already got the MAUI app template as a recent template, but if you wanted to look for it, easiest way is just go and search for MAUI. There's a .NET MAUI app there, or the .NET Blazor hybrid app. We might be doing something later with that, but today the .NET MAUI app will do us just fine. We'll call this poo bin finder and hit next. So .NET Framework 9 will do us. We don't need the sample content, so we'll just proceed with that and click Create. So here we've got the standard template created. You can see here under platforms, we've got something for all of them: Android, iOS, Mac Catalyst, Tizen for Linux and Windows. I think for the purposes of our demonstration today, we're going to stick with Android. Later on, we may come to iOS, but I'm going to have to do some stuff to get my MacBook laptop set up to allow us to sort of do debugging and that. So we'll stick with Android for the moment because it's simpler. But what I will do is I will remove the platform folders for Windows, Tizen and Mac Catalyst, because we're not going to do those as part of this demonstration. Delete and delete. And then let's just look at the project app to make sure that's still going to work as we would hope. So up in the target frameworks, we've got Android, we've got iOS. We will remove Mac Catalyst, and we will remove the Windows one. I think by default, Tizen isn't actually included as a target framework, even though it was there in the platforms folder, but we can just leave that as it is. Save that down and reload projects. Hopefully that will work for us. Let's just quickly build that, make sure we haven't broken anything. Yep, that looks fine. Okay, so let's take a look at the layouts of this sample project. So obviously we've got, for example, looking at Android, that has its main application. The main application follows a standard pattern for this MAUI application. We can see the Create MAUI app that's then going into the MAUI program, Create MAUI app. So that links into the generic part of it, the old Xamarin Forms concept. So if we then look into MAUI program, that's basically where we register all our services. We've got the builder for the MAUI app. The moment we're not doing much here, we're just registering use MAUI app and configure fonts. That's all fine. And then we can see in our app.xaml, that's basically what's getting created here. Basically it gives us a resource dictionary. I can remember that sort of stuff from my old WPF days. And then in the code behind, we are creating a new instance of an app shell, which is there. That app shell tells us what our content is. Our content is going to be the main page. I think the concept that we have with the shell is that might be the point where we allow for multiple page navigation when something like that is set up, but we've got a really simple project at the moment. We're just going to have the main page, so that's all we're concerned about today. And if I have a look at the main page.xaml, we can see there that it's got basically a few things in there to give us like a little sample working application, so we can just see what's going on. So I can run this up. I have got the Android emulator set up with Pixel 7. So if I click on that, that should start that up in the background. If you don't have that running, you can just select that you want to run under Android emulator. That will then come up and give you the option to install everything. And it's quite a straightforward process, but it takes a while. It's going to take about half an hour to get that set up. So for the purposes of the demo, I thought let's start with one already ready to go. So here we go. That emulator is starting up. And ideally, at some point, we will see our application run. So after much faff, we get our application running here. It just does this like very simple thing. We've got a little counter there, a few different controls. That's really it. It's just really basic, but it gives us something to start with. What I want to do now is to go through this, and I want to migrate what we have here into more of an MVVM pattern. What I will do is we're going to go to GitHub Copilot. I'm going to go to open the chat window, and actually we probably want to go to a new edits thread here. So the edits thread basically gives us the capability to ask Copilot to make some edits for us. So what I'm going to go through and say, let me just first work out where we need to start. Obviously we've got our main page.xaml. That main page XAML has got the code behind that does all of that stuff that we were thinking about. So updating the counter and changing the text that gets displayed. So I want to ask Copilot to take this and move it into a more MVVM style. So let's go ahead and see what it does. Can you refactor the code behind implementation of main page into an MVVM style? So let it work its magic. So as we would expect, we've seen a main page view model appear, and we see changes to main page.xaml and main page.xaml.cs. So let's have a look at the change that it's proposing to make to the code behind file. So not too much at the moment, just setting the binding context to the main page view model. Main page itself, yep, binding the counter text and creating a command there to use the view model. And then obviously the view model itself, we can see that we've got an exposed command to increment the counter. And then we have the ability to set and change the counter text. So let's let it apply those changes. And for some reason, it can't find the main page view model. It forgot to add the using statement for us. This is the thing with Copilot, you have to be on the ball. You can't just let it do anything it wants. You have to keep an eye on what it's up to. So that's fine. I don't know why we still have the on counter clicked here. So let's have a look. What were we doing in the view model? So it's got on counter clicked. That's setting the text for us. So it seems like that's redundant code. Just save the changes and I'll ask it to double check that. It doesn't apologize, but it just says, here we are, we're going to make another change to mainpage.xaml.cs. So it has made no changes at all. Fair enough. Okay, so let's just go in and see if we can do that ourselves. I don't think this is needed. I'm pretty sure that it's doing all of that here. Let's just do it the old-fashioned way. We'll get rid of that. Save. And check to see if we still build. We do. Let's run that up. Make sure the functionality still works the way we were expecting. And it does. Perfect. Okay, that's great. That's a bit of a start. But I don't really like the fact that it is setting up the binding context here in the code behind. I prefer there to be nothing at all in the code behind, and just you can basically just set the binding context up at the top of the page XAML itself. So let's ask it if we can do that. So let's see what it's done for this. Right, this is not a great experience. This was not helpful. Incomplete response. Basically, it didn't do anything. Is it because I'm saying can we? Do the creation of the view model from the code behind into main page .xaml. Okay, so it's saying it is going to make a change here. Oh, there we go. So that's what I was hoping for. So finally, we've got the view model registered there, and it is then setting up the binding context for the page itself using that view model. And within MAUI-program.cs, it's then making sure that view model is registered as a singleton, which is what we would hope to see. I don't know why it didn't make a change to the CS file, the code behind. I'll have to do that ourselves. But accept all of those anyway. So hopefully that still builds. Which it does. Excellent. The only other thing I wanted to look at here is, obviously we've got a view model, but we don't really have a model. It's just all happening within the view model itself. So I'm going to ask one more thing, if we can separate that out into its own little bit. Let's see what it can do with that. Nothing, basically. So we're having some trouble with this. I'm going to try something here. Let's just change the model here to the Claude 3.5 Sonnet preview, because I think that has given us better results in the past. Let's click that over there, and then hopefully I can just repeat the same question or request and see if that makes a difference. Then he seems to be thinking about it a bit more. Hopefully it's going to work this time. Excellent. Okay, so good. We see what we would expect to see. We see a change to the view model. We see something changing in the MAUI program. That's going to be the registration of the counter model, and then the counter model itself. So let's have a look at the counter model, see if it did what I asked. So we have a count. and we have property that just shows that count in a read-only way, and we have an increment which will, as it says on the tin, increment the counter. Perfect, that's what we want. And what are we doing in the view model for this? So it registers itself a counter model. We can see that coming in through constructor injection, and then count text. Not sure why we got the private set there. I guess, yeah, so that's only ever done from within this. So it looks like the Claude model is correcting some of the mistakes that were made previously by the previous model. So, yeah, this is using the R counter model to do the incrementing and to get the count, which is what we would expect to see. Brilliant. Let's accept all those changes and run it up, see where we are. Using default constructor for the view model. Okay, so probably the issue here is that you can't just bind it directly like that. We'd have to do some shenanigans to bring in the model to plug into the view model. So maybe we need to move that back to where we were before of having that done in the code behind, and the code behind will obviously use the correct dependency injection to get us the model for the view model. So let's go back to here and say basically that. So we lose that from main page.xaml. Perfect. And then here we have our constructor, takes in the injected main page view model, and then sets as binding context. So that should do what we want. Let's accept those changes and save the changes and build. And there we go. That's where we want it to be. So that's this first step done. It took a little bit of faff. We learned some things about how Copilot works, and that we should probably use the Claude model from the start, because that previous model, I remind myself, the GPT-4o doesn't seem to really understand some of this stuff. It was a little bit tricky to get it to do what we wanted to do. So that lesson learned there, and we've got the base for our application. So let's think about what we want to add here. Okay, Mr. T, shall we have a look at what we're going to do today? Right. So we've already created the app. We've done a little bit of refactoring. That's given us our blank application. Well, it's got a few things on it, but we're going to replace them. So the next step is we need to add a map. So let's just draw some random map here. It's going to look like this. Roads or whatever they happen to be. And the final thing we're going to do today is we're going to show our location. Something like that. What do you think there, Mr. T? Is that a good plan? Total disinterest. Anyway, let's go and do it. So, for this next section, we're going to add our maps to the application. And for that, we could have used something like the Google Maps API, but that requires the, sort out a key. And from what I can see, in order to get your key, you've got to sign up to what would be potentially a paid plan, although they say it's free, but I never believe that sort of thing. So instead, I've decided to use an open source option, which is called MAPSUI or MAPSUI, it looks like, but they say it should be pronounced MAPSUI. So let's flick over to Visual Studio and see what we can add with that. So here we are back in our solution. Hello, Sea Dog, what's the matter? Yes, okay. Yeah, but I'm presenting a video. Daddy's presenting a video. Okay? Why don't you go in your bed? Huh? Yeah. Okay, right. So sorry, let's have a look. If we go back to the Solution Explorer, what we can then do, go into our dependencies, manage NuGet packages, and I want to add in here, we browse for MAPSUI dot MAUI. Find that. Now let's try the latest stable one here. I seem to recall when I tried this out in the past, there were some issues with the pre-release one. So I'll stick with the stable one and see what happens. So let's click install on that. Sign your life away with these and see where we go. Okay, that's all installed now. So we see this thing, it complains about package version outside of dependency constraint, but that's basically because it was expecting the framework version to be less than 9, and we're obviously on 9, but hopefully that doesn't cause any problems, so we'll just press ahead with that. So that is added. Let's just check that we can build. There we go. So now that we've got everything installed, let's flip back to our Maui program.cs. In fact, let me just briefly show the docs on MAPSUI. So basically it's saying that obviously we've done that step. We now need to add this, use ski_sharp to our Maui program initialization. Let's do that and bring in the usings for that, like so. So it's happy with that. Great stuff. And now let's have a look again at the docs to see what we need to add the control to our page. So basically the way they document it is to do everything in the code behind. I'm just going to go ahead with that. I don't know if there's any possibility that we can drop these in as actual Maui controls within our page, XAML controls I should say. But we'll have a go with this code behind stuff at the moment and make do with that. So yeah, it's just saying that we want to create the map control and add it to our content. I don't want to do that because I'll modify the page and give us a content view control that we can then drop this into. It's a much more elegant way of doing it, I think. Let's go to our main page code behind. Drop that in. We're not going to do the content, we're going to do something else. So as I said, let's have a look at the XAML page. What we can do is, I think we're going to keep our button. We'll use that for something else in the future, but let's get rid of everything else and replace that with a content view. Give it a name. Map container, yeah, thank you very much. That looks very good, but obviously pressed the wrong button. There we go, tab. There, thank you very much. Thank you for that, Copilot. And now we can go back here and we can say this dot map container dot content equals map control. That should give what we want. and we should be good to go. Okay, fine. This is new. I thought we could launch it before, but now we can't. Let's have a look at what it's saying. So look at error list for details. What does it mean here? The project poop-in finder needs to be deployed before it can be started. Verify the project is selected to be deployed in the Solution Configuration Manager. Let's have a look. Whereabouts is that? Solution Configuration Manager. There we go. And yeah, it's not selected to deploy anymore. I don't know why. It certainly was in the past. But there we go. Okay, let's have another go. Okay, yeah, so it's created the form, but there's nothing there. Let's just stop that and have a look. It's possibly to do with the sizing, and see if Copilot knows what to do. I am adding, if I can spell, I am adding this map control to the container, but nothing is visible. Is there a problem with the sizing? So yeah, as I suspected, it's basically down to the fact that we don't say what size it needs to be, and we don't tell it how we want it to scale. So we'll go ahead and do that. So this is a suitable breakpoint, and I think it's time to pause for coffee. Right, some of you are probably thinking it, so let's just say it. He's not a real coder. He's using AI. Might as well let the dogs write the code. But I don't see it like that. To my mind, using AI as a second brain is exactly how you become that elusive 10x developer. It's like having a pair programmer who doesn't complain about boilerplate or need coffee breaks. Just keep control of the process, check everything, because the moment you let AI become your first brain, you've already outsourced your thinking. If you're enjoying this mix of serious code, ridiculous ideas, and occasional dog wisdom, give it a like, maybe subscribe, or leave a comment down below. It helps other people find this ludicrous corner of YouTube, and honestly, the dogs get really smug about it. So basically, if we look at the options that we've got here from Copilot, I think it's probably best that we go with this one where we are looking for pretty much a full screen view, so setting the height request to 600 and trying to fill horizontally and vertically. So if I just copy that little bit and insert it into the XAML page itself, something like this, appease my OCD, and that should do what we want. And we're getting some extra advice here as well, saying that since you're using a map control, you might want to consider removing the scroll view because it can interfere with map gestures. Excellent. I tell you what, let's just let's stick with what it's got here, and I think we'll circle back to that because that sounds like an important thing to do. We do want to enable the map gestures, but let's see what we've got here. If we can save that down and run it. And there we go. We have a map. That's what we needed. Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, let's just go back and take a quick look what it was saying there. So yeah, it's saying to change, keep the content page, but remove the scroll view, give us a grid. Start off with the content view as the first row, and I'm guessing this, yeah, the second row for the button itself. So can we do that? So yeah, that looks reasonable. How do I oh, I'll tell you what it's saying here. Do I want to accept the change? Accept. Helps to look, really, doesn't it? So there we go. Grid, content view button. Perfect. That should work. Save that change and double check again. Looking good. For our final step, we're going to go in and use location services to work out where we are and to center the map and zoom the map down to that level. Okay, the pressure's on. The dogs are waiting for me in the demo room, so we'd better get cracking. I've made a couple of changes since the last time we looked at this. Basically, I've just removed all of the warnings that were coming up down here. So there was a warning about the version of MAUI that we were using. So I've updated that to the latest preview release. It needed like a couple of changes, like here, and you'll see in the code behind as well. But it seems to be working fine, so that's good. There were some errors to do with nullable types and not using them properly, so I've got rid of all of those. And there was also an error about the fact that in mainpage.xaml we hadn't defined the data type for our view model, so it couldn't use compile time bindings. So that's all fixed now. So we've got a nice clean slate there. Everything looks good. So that gives us a good point where we can start today. So step one is we need to enable location services. We want to basically tell the Android and the iOS side that we are going to require the coarse and fine locations. So I'll just ask Copilot to add that specifically for us. Let's go into Copilot edits, new session there, and say, so please update the metadata for Android and iOS to declare that we need to access our location, coarse and fine. Let's see what it does with that. Okay, it looks like it's done that correctly. So declaring that I don't know why it decided to add some sort of icon, but anyway, so it's adding the coarse and fine location there. Okay, and the plist. Yep, that looks fine too. Okay, excellent. So that's step one. Step two, I want to carefully tell it that I want a iLocation service interface, and that should allow me to request the location, and when I do so, it should be going into the platform specific stuff and saying, doing what it needs to do to perform that user interaction to approve location services and make sure that we do have the permission before we actually try and get the location. So let's say something there. So please add iLocation service and its implementation. This service should return the lat long location and do what is needed to confirm that we have the required user permissions before doing so. It should return a tuple for lat long or null if we don't have the permission. And a good step here is that it's decided that it needs to register that service with MAUI program.cs, which is excellent. That means it's going to be there for us when we need it. So iLocation service, task of double latitude, longitude, and it's nullable. Get location async, perfect, that's what we want. Tab for that. Let's just look at the registration in MAUI program.cs first, and more simple stuff. So it's adding this Poopin Finder services, brilliant, and then adding a singleton to resolve iLocation service as the location service, which is perfect. Save that down, and then let's look at the implementation. So we are saying this is our task of lat long, get location service async. Do I want that? Maybe I'll ask it to create a record type just to handle that. Permissions check, location when in use, if it's granted. Okay, sorry, yeah, so it's checking if we already have permission, and if it's not, then it's going to request that permission, and if we still don't get the permission, we're going to return null at that point. It's then going to try and get our location. It's putting accuracy medium. It's got a 5-second timeout, and if we don't get anything there, then we return null, and if we get any sort of exception, we return null as well. That's kind of what I would have expected, so let's just tab to accept that. So this returns a location. Why don't we just use that? So I'll ask it to forget about that tuple for lat long and just return a location object as is used by the get location async or null. Do you just return that location? That's perfect. Okay, let's try that again. I accepted the changes and they just disappeared. Boy, there's a lot of hallucinations going on here. Accept all. Okay. Ah, boy, I just forgot to make the changes over this side. I cannot be bothered to ask it again. Let's just do it. Okay, let's just do it here. So that's happy. It's now implementing that, but obviously we're returning something different. So we just need to return the location. We're getting there. Let's get into the final steps of this. So we have our location service where we can get the location as required. We have our main page view model. We want to change this so that it keeps a record of the location service. And give us a field for that. Oop. Don't have resharper, do I? Okay, there we go. So we've got our location service available. What we now need to do is that when the main page is loaded, it should go in and request the location and then update the map to show that. So let's override the lifecycle hook for on appearing. So that's basically when the page finally appears, it can then go get the location from our location service. And then update the map control to show that. So we get the location, we need to convert it into the endpoint type that's used by MAUI for that sort of thing, and then we need to tell the map control to center on that location and to set the zoom level down to a suitable level, like 5 I think we need. So let's try that. So reach into the view model to get our current location, and then convert this to an endpoint for MAUI. One last step, let's see if it can do this. Good, making on appearing async. I didn't do that, so that's clever. So in the view model, it's going to expose a method presumably to get that. Why are you... Okay, so it's publicly exposing the location service. It's changing the way the counter text work, even though I didn't ask it to make any changes there. Okay, let's just accept that first one. Let's delete that one. Delete that one. Delete that one, and delete that one. Not the way I'd have necessarily done it, but let's just use this for now. I can maybe refactor this later. But that should do it. So let's have a look at our code behind. And then we're doing what we expect. So it's saying change that to async, getting the location via the view model. I mean, we may as well have just plumbed the location service directly into the code behind with this method, but that's fine. So getting the coordinate from the lat long that comes in. It didn't convert that to an endpoint. It's going to need an endpoint, so we'll see this will probably fail. Map control doesn't have navigator, that's part of the map. So yeah, it's got all of this wrong, but it's close enough. We'll just do some minor tweaks to get it to actually work. So that needs to be an endpoint. Endpoint. Like so. And then map control dot map, if it has one, navigator, if it has one, and center on just that point. Same here, and zoom to 5. I think 15, I believe, is a bit too far out for our requirements. Okay, do we have a full build? It's getting exciting. We might be there. Look at that error list. No new warnings generated, so let's run that up. Let's see what happens. And there we go. Fantastic. Perhaps we could zoom in a little bit more, but basically this is the location that I set up with this previously. Let me just show you a trick that I found for setting this location. Well, not really a trick, it's like kind of, I think it's a bug, but if we have a look in here, you would think that you basically set your single point location here, and this is the default that it comes up with, this San Jose, California, Mountain View. I guess that's Google headquarters that it zooms in on, but that's not what gets used. Basically, what it uses is the last route that you actually walked or drove or whatever within this emulator. So you actually need to go in here, and you can see that I've got a saved route, not just saved, but I previously clicked that route and then clicked on play route. That's the only way it seems to actually update the location that the emulator sends back when we request that through location services. So you can see here that I've got a central London location next to St Paul's Cathedral, and that's basically what we are seeing there on the map. So you have to set up that route and play the route in order to get the location to work. I'd like to be zoomed in a little bit more on this, so even 5 didn't work. Surprisingly, I thought that was okay, but let's change that to a 2. Restart that. Fantastic. We've got what we want. The dogs are waiting, so time to go and do a demo. Mr. T, see, look, here's the application. Look, here's the... Oh, no, you're not too interested in it either. See, dog. Okay, this isn't working too well as a demonstration, but Mr. T, can you see? See, there, that's where we... No. Okay. Okay, Sea Dog, come on in. Here, look, I want to show you no. Okay, anybody? No, Mr. T, look, that's where you were, and you're gone. Well, I mean, at least it works for us. They don't seem to be that interested. Our app is up and running, but right now it's about as useful as a poo bag with a hole in it. Next time, we'll add real bin locations and map out the best route to them, making it actually functional. Hey, this is my first video. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feedback, ideas, or even a coding horror story. Drop a comment below, and whether you loved it or just barely survived it. Thanks for watching. Coffee grinds.